welcome to my channel. My name is Misty, and today we're going to be talking all about child-led learning. I'll actually be taking you around a few places in our homeschooling area to show you just how we add child-led learning into our homeschooling day. And before I share all the details of our child-led learning class, I want to say I am super excited for today's video because it is a collab with my favorite all-time homeschooling mama. If you've been on my channel for any length of time, then you would know that my favorite YouTuber for the homeschool niche is Torrie from the Oglesby Ohana. I don't think you guys get how exciting this is because for me, in homeschooling and YouTube, Torrie is like the Beyonce of the homeschool world for me, okay? I absolutely adore her and I know you will too, so make sure that you go check out her video as well. She'll actually be doing a video on homeschooling and child-led learning and kind of the basics and how it works, so it'll be a really great fundamental video for you to go check out. She will be linked right down below for you guys. And for any new people coming from her channel, hello, welcome. Make sure that you go down to the comment section and say hello so that I can get to know you. I do want to make two clear points before we start going around the classroom. And so the first one, what is child-led learning? Well, basically, it's letting your child take initiative of their learning and activities that they'll do throughout their day instead of a parent or a teacher controlling the schedule and the curriculum, everything like that. Like I said, Torrie will be doing a great video all about this, so go check out her video as well. Once again, link down below. And the second thing I would like to say is you as the parent are still very involved in this process, even though it's child-led learning. You will be the one responsible for creating the environment in which your child will be learning in, and also you will be controlling what your child will self-initiate for learning and what you will have more control over in their day. So it is still your job as the parent to make sure that all of their learning spaces and options are still very conducive to their learning and skill level, as well as being age appropriate. All right, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I'm going to do is show you generally what the room looks like, and then we'll break it down as far as the child-led learning goes. Okay, so this is another angle of our schoolroom. Once again, I'm going to show you everything a little more in depth. Now, this won't be a room tour because I already have that on my channel, but I will still take you around kind of touring some of the child-led areas. But first, let's talk about some basics about our class. So this is our learning environment. So it is important, I want to add, you can just see generally that you want to keep the space organized and cleanly. And the reason for this is because you don't want to overwhelm your child. As the adult, we are obviously more developed in our brain than kids, and we may understand where everything is. In our brains, everything makes sense. But if there's not organization and cleanliness, then for a child whose brain isn't that developed and sophisticated in a sense, like we obviously put this all out, we know where it goes and how to use it, but kids wouldn't know that. So if it's not organized and clean, then it's overwhelming for them, and that would make them less interested in any kind of self-initiated learning or play. So obviously kids need everything very simple, clear, and precise. They need to be able to clearly see where all of the options are, how to find them, and to make sense of them all. But this will also help the kids remember that everything has a designated place, so that makes cleaning up and tidiness a lot easier on their end because they're not overwhelmed with mess and any kind of unorganized areas that they don't fully understand. So make sure that you're keeping it nice, clean, and tidy. That way they will be able to help you keep it that way. All right, let's go ahead and talk about some things. We're going to talk about my tables first. Okay, so first we're going to talk about this table here, which is in like the middle of our main hub for schooling. And this is our sensory table. Granted, we do use this for more than just sensory. The girls often like to pull trays, which we'll talk about later, and they'll put them on the table or other things too. The main function for this table though is what's inside, and that is sensory bins. You can't really see here just because camera angle issues, but this is full of sensory bin options. I haven't changed these since October because, well, life's been crazy, one, and two, they just love the sensory, and I don't believe in changing it just because I change it when they get bored. But regardless of that, this is a great child-led option that you could do. Now, the only thing I would say is this can get messy depending on what you put out. Obviously, bird food here can get quite messy, and there are times that I'm vacuuming up crazy amounts of debris on the carpet. But we tend to keep very clear rules about how to use sensory bins, and it's not often that it gets out of hand. Sensory bins are a great way to learn through the senses, and it's very therapeutic. Now, obviously you can have clear rules. This can either be something where you let your kid go ahead and open it when they please, or it can be something where they need to ask so that you're aware and keeping an eye on them while they play in it. So either way is fine, but it is a great child-led option to use in your classroom or in your homeschool room, or whatever you want to call it. All right, so here we are at our other table. This is our main learning table, we'll call it. This is where we come to do a lot of things that involve our reading curriculum, writing, math, those kind of things we'll do at this table usually. Also, as you can see, we have a friend here. This is Max. And Max is, as far as they're concerned, they call it their brother, but Max is our friend here who teaches us about the human body. Currently, we are working on a human body unit study, and Max is here and available for any child-led, interest-led learning they would like to do, any self-initiated play to understand the human body and get to know it more. So even if we're not working on science in that moment, if it is available on this table, they know that they have the freedom to come in and play with Max and see what they can explore. Like here is a lung that belongs to Max. They have the right to explore this body and have some self-initiated play and understanding of human anatomy to go along with our science studies. Now here's the great thing about this table and the understanding that me and my kids have just from slowly conditioning to understand the rules. And that is, if Max isn't on this table, that means I don't want him played with freely. And that does happen sometimes. So there are times where I take Max off this table and I put him somewhere where generally they know it's things in that area that they have to ask permission to use. And so then they know to ask to play with Max. But otherwise, if it's on this table, they have complete freedom to do any kind of self-initiated play. And now I would like to quickly talk about this right here, which I have a more in-depth video on, but this is our interactive child-led learning schedule. Now, when you do child-led learning, like I said, you still have control over what subjects you would let them self-initiate, and you also control which of the things you're more in control of. And for us, that is math and reading. Math and reading are very important to me. And for the sake of getting what I expect to be done in those two areas, those I control all the time. It's not always self-led learning, though you'll see some of that in our class. I'm the one mainly in control of those two things. We do use curriculum for that. But because I'm in control of some of those choices of subjects and the fact that it's curriculum instead of like trays set out or anything else that it might be in this class that we'll talk about. I've made this chart recently. This is brand new for our class, but I made this chart recently for my daughter to still have control. So even though I'm taking control of her reading and math curriculum, she still has the option to control when we do it. And that still lets her feel very self-initiated in the situation, and she feels like she has a say in her day. This also helps her to build confidence in advocating for herself and creating the type of day that she would envision for herself. And so in my last video, or one of my last two videos, we went more in depth on this, so feel free to check that out. But this here is kind of a say of what she would do. So for example, she would start with mindfulness of her own choice, not me making this list. And she would go from there throughout her day to complete all the subjects that we need to do that day. It doesn't always look like these subjects. It does change up, and yes, I spelled science wrong. I'll fix that at some point. So for the sake of keeping this video not too long, that's all I'll say about this part right now. Okay, so now let's talk about this area. This is our general like bookshelf area of the classroom. And here's the general rule that I keep known to my kids in this space. And that is that shelves 1 and 2 at the bottom are all theirs to use freely and do what they want. From the 3rd up, they ask permission to get them out just so I can be aware and keep an eye on them, whether that's because maybe it's not fully age appropriate, or maybe it's choking hazards, or maybe it's just something that gives me a little bit of anxiety for them to have out whenever they want. And I would like to just control those things a little more to keep our room going in a way I would want it to. But I do love that this creates, like I said, confidence in that self-initiated play and learning. I want them to be their own educational advocate, and I want them to feel empowered to make their own choices in these spaces with what they would like to learn. And I also make sure, like I said, to keep it very organized and concise. That way they can visibly see everything and their brain can kind of figure out what it all is and where it goes and what you do with it. If they're confused with the space, honestly, it's going to cause a lot of overwhelm for them, and they'll lose interest in wanting to use the space to learn. So that's why it is so important to make sure you keep it clear, clean, and organized. Another thing I'd like to point out is Montessori learning has a very good point, which is like simplicity is key. Now, this isn't as simple as a Montessori class would be, but still everything has its place and is pretty clear and concise. It's not cluttered up so that they can see everything without being overwhelmed. Now, I do have videos where I go more in depth on where I put everything, but just so you know, there are trays placed all back here and a few down here. I keep puzzles up here as well. There are games that they can play down in this area that are educational games. Behind me even further that you can't see is a whole section of books for them to pull out and explore as they please, and just some other various things as well to pull out. Everything on these shelves has been picked and planned by me according to, like I said, their age and skill level. So it's age appropriate, learning appropriate, skill appropriate. If we're putting things that are too simple all the time, then it's going to be not so interesting and also never really challenging. So make sure that you are doing age appropriate, skill appropriate, learning appropriate. Now behind me here, you see these are learning trays, which I plan to do a lot more videos more in depth about in the future, but I am a huge advocate for learning trays. This is something that I've done for as long as I've known how to work with kids and as long as I've done things in classrooms, and it's just something that works. It's clearly a very structured play and learning option. It's great also for tidiness. Like, it's very clear that this is the workspace. Like, they know that this right here is their workspace to do anything with. So they may take this tray and put it on one of the tables. They may go find a rug space in the classroom, or they may even just put it down on the carpet right here in front of the shelf. But the tray is generally the space they know to work with. They know it goes back into the tray, and they know there's just a very clear space, obviously, that it will go in to keep it organized and tidy and clean. This isn't overwhelming to a kid. They're able to identify with their eyes exactly where to put it, and they're not worried about like seeing 30 things and trying to figure out where it goes on that pile of 30 things. So that's why we keep it pretty simple. Everything has its space accordingly for the shelves. Now, trays are also a great option for those of you who can't be by your child 100% of the time. If you have multiple kids and you're trying to work on a subject with maybe a few, and then like you have younger ones running around and you need to know what to do with them, these are a great option because you can control just how much they are self-initiated. Like, I generally choose things that they won't need my help to do. None of this requires a parent to help them. That means that I have the ability to tell them to play with this and do it by themselves 100%. If they do get stuck in any way, shape, or form, they can wait for me to be done helping the other kid, and then I can come help them. But it's up to you. If you want it to be more heavily parentally involved, then you can make it a lot more intricate. But obviously I keep these quite simple so that I don't have to keep hovering over them the entire time that they're using the trays, and I can get other things done. So if you're not doing trays, this is key, guys. Start trying this out, see how it works. I guarantee you, you're going to love this one. All right, so on to the next thing. We are back at my table. I told you this is a very important and crucial table in our homeschooling. Now, this is a great option for if you don't have an actual art space, and that's why I'm showing you this. If you notice, Max is gone. That means right now we're not playing with Max. Max is not an option. The option now is art. I've given two options. One is a little more of a closed-ended option, which is more like a craft. And this is considered open art or process art over here. And we'll talk about what that means here in a second. Well, actually, we'll talk about it now. So a craft is something such as this, where there is an end goal in mind. It's not about the process, it's about what you reach at the end, though the process is still important, obviously. Open-ended art or process art is all about the in-between. It's about the process. So instead of worrying about a beginning, a middle, and an end like you would with a craft, this is more about us not reaching a destination, but being present and loving the process. It takes a lot of stress off of kids too if you have a perfectionist. Open-ended art is a lot more of an option you would probably want to go with. Now, I'm showing the table because this is something really important for those of you that have a small space. If you don't have like areas to create, like I have a circle time space, I have a main like learning space, and then I have an exercise space, those kind of things. If you don't have all of that, then you would do something like this, which is to create spaces that are able to be moved around and changed out. And so as you can see, Max is gone, signs is no longer an option, but they now have an option up here. Now, I wouldn't put out the stencils and this unless you want them to maybe intertwine the two, which would be fine. But what you can do instead is give them an open art option or the craft option on the table, and then maybe on your carpet or at the kitchen table, wherever it may be, give them another option for maybe math or reading. It could be science, whatever it is. So you can rotate out multiple options throughout your school day. So Max was the first thing we had as an option. All right, after an hour, we're done having Max out. And now for the next hour, it's going to be art as an option. So feel free to change them out as you need to. So for open-ended art, I'm giving them these little dot markers, as you can see. and everything's laid out open for them to use as they please. They have 3 paper options as well to use. You could also put out these markers plus crayons plus paint sticks or whatever it is you want to set out. And this one, like I said, is a stencil kit. This is a lot more closed-ended in a sense, like I said, because the whole objective is to be able to stencil out whatever the picture is in the stencil, if that makes sense. So that's how I would use it in a small space. Now let's go look at the art space I'm building. It is nowhere near done at all. It's actually in a side of the basement that's not even painted or anything, so it's like super old school in the 70s. Okay, so this is the general area where I'll be working on an open-ended or process art area. So this is like a dream come true space, which is like a self-initiated, no permission needed type of art hub. It will be like no instruction given, plenty of creativity options, plenty of room for them to just think and create on their own. Now here's the cool thing about open-ended or process art, and that is you could use the most random stuff in this area. So if you look, I have paper, there's paint back here. Right here are different types of clay and Play-Doh that they could use. Back here we have some random glitter tapes and pieces of string. At the bottom I have different things to use like scissors, crayons, markers, everything like that, as well as stamps. I give them random options and they have the ability to create whatever they want without me telling them how to do it or what to do. There is no end goal in sight. It's all about just creating and doing what you feel is right. They can be as creative or as inventive as they want to be. Now, I do want to obviously say this can be something that could get quite messy. You have to be clear up front about what ground rules will be laid and make sure that you stay on top of those rules. But just keep in mind, if it's something that you want them to ask permission first before they go into the art space, make that clear. Make that a rule from the beginning that they know this is not an open space necessarily. But like I said, for me and my kids, I'm just going to let them come over as they please and create as they please, as long as they keep it over here and not spread all the happiness of art everywhere else. Now, the very last thing I want to touch on is about books. Now, this is something that I learned from Torrie, and that is strewing books. Strewing books is kind of a way of saying the process of putting books around your house or your learning space strategically so that your kids are enticed to pick up books more often. Hopefully more often than they ask to watch TV. You can choose books that they love. You can choose books based on subjects you're learning about. Or you could even place out new books on subjects you would like them to start learning about as well. I like to do a mix of all of those options, as well as I mix age-appropriate books, skill-appropriate books with also more advanced or even possibly some easier options. That way they're exposed to a lot of different options to choose from. So for instance, right here next to our sectional, this is like a family space. So they're always welcome to come over here and have family time and cuddle, or to just sit down and read books alone if they want. Now, I tend to let them read on their own unless they ask me to read for them. I do that because I want them to feel comfortable initiating their own reading, especially my child who is at an age of learning to read. Now, this isn't the only spot with books. This is just one example, but you'll find books like that kind of throughout the house. I want to thank you guys so much for your time. I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, hit the thumbs up so I know you like this type of content. And once again, for all you brand new people, hello, welcome. Make sure that you subscribe for more homeschooling content just like this, and hit the bell so that you are notified when I post a video. But thank you so much for watching this video. Once again, for the rest of you, go check out Torrie. Subscribe to her. You will love her. She is phenomenal. All right, but I want you guys to have a wonderful day. Have fun homeschooling. I'll see you next time. Bye.